Well, sometimes we change our proximity a little bit so that we meet some unusual people. And so Eltham Baptist Church commissioned a team of 15 of us, I believe, in the end, and we all made our own way via various routes. I think the most interesting one was from Michelle Stanhope. Is she with us somewhere? Yes, Michelle. Ask her about her future as a travel agent and the sorts of flights that she could find for you. I took her through Thailand and Russia and Croatia, and then and finally to Greece as well. But we went via different ways and found ourselves downtown Athens in a place that is familiar to some of you who have been on one of these trips, the Titania Hotel. And in the lobby of the Titania is this atrium, and up there is a very long board table. And as we sat down again with the team that was there, minus two, Max and Liza were still making their way from Austria. But as we sat down there, I looked around the table once more and thought, praise God, thank you, Lord, for the team that you have assembled for this particular trip here in 2016. And very shortly, I'm going to invite them to come up and share some stories. It's not really their stories, though. It's really God's story, of which we happen to be witnesses to. And that's what we really want to do tonight, is share what we observed God doing in and through us whilst we're away. And our prayer is that you will connect some dots about your own witness here in Australia as well, and you'll kind of think to yourself, yeah, actually, I've experienced that. Here I am on mission with God here in Australia, Melbourne, or the outer suburbs, and here I am on mission with God. And yes, what you say rings true. I do believe I have experienced God in the same way. And as we share these stories, inevitably what seems to happen is that we get built up in the faith, and that's what we want to do. We want to edify one another, we want to build one another up in the faith, and we want to be reminded of the goodness of God, that He would include us in His mission and empower us to join Him and play a vital role. So whether that's here or there, we praise God. It's His mission in each case. Well, to give you just a little bit of a snapshot of what we got up to, I believe the guys have a video for us. Is that ready to go, Mark? Yeah, we think so. All right, let's give that a shot if we can. And here's OJ 2016 in a nutshell. Wow. You see how intense it was with that music constantly in the background as we went around handing out Bibles? That's not easy. Sorry? Yes, yeah. Actually, that little black car that it showed going, what do they call that? Not slow motion, is it? Or anyway, the way they came around, that was our car. Yes, yeah. No, we stuck pretty much to the speed limit. I'd like to invite we're going to share in three little brackets and three people at a time. I'd like to invite Cam and Jordan. And Lindsay, by the way, sends her apologies. She's not feeling very well. and Bron. Cam, Jordan, and Bron, would you like to come up and give them a round of applause? Woo. We appreciate them sharing with us. Why don't we go in that order? Cam, Jordan, Bron. Is that all right? There we go, buddy. Just put you on the spot there.
All right. When we met up together as a team on Thursday, we were asked to share something that we found, something that we learned on the trip, or something along those lines. And one thing was, I gave a story from the time that we had, and the story was that as I was going around with one of the other team members from the team I was on to hand out Bibles, we were trying to do it as efficiently and as quickly as possible, because the aim of the day that we would cover this whole town as quickly as we can before the authorities caught on to what we were doing. So, not that it was illegal, but so we went around, and one of the most efficient ways to hand out Bibles is to go to apartment buildings, because it's a lot of people living very close by, and it's easy to go up and down the apartment building and just give Bibles around to everyone. But the issue was that most of these apartment buildings had 2 occupants out of maybe 10 apartments, which was not great, but nonetheless, we handed out Bibles there, and we came to this one apartment building that had the full 20 occupants, 20 people in the one apartment building. We're like, yes, this is easy. But the issue is that the door to the building was locked. So we went around handing more Bibles, and then we came back, and as we were coming back, we saw someone coming out of the apartment building, so we kind of just held the door to go in. And as we were going in, we kind of realized we had 4 Bibles between the 2 of us, which was very unfortunate. Our option was to leave the door, and it would be locked again, and go find the van to get more Bibles, or to kind of just suspiciously wait around at this door for the van to come around to us, which was not practical. So we let the door go, and we decided, well, you know what, this is God's mission after all. So why don't we pray to God that He would kind of do something about this? These people in the apartment building, it'd be good for them all to have a Bible. And one of the issues is that we didn't want to leave Bibles. Like, we could leave Bibles just at the entrance to this place, but if one occupant found them and didn't like them, they would just kind of make an executive decision for everyone else and just throw them all away. So we prayed about it, and we got more Bibles, and fair enough, the door was locked. And it was kind of disappointing, but we were like, well, God is still in control. So we went around handing out more Bibles, and we'd finished. We were going home, and as we were leaving, we said, well, let's stop by this place one last time, and we did. And as we approached, these 2 people pulled up in a car and parked their car, and they were going into that building. So we kind of, as best we could without raising any suspicion, we kind of just tried to follow them in. Didn't work. They saw us with these bags of stuff in them, and they said, the interrogation started. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing? And we said, in our very broken Greek, we have Bibles for you. And they kind of took them, and they looked at them and, examined them. And it was just like, are these for us? I'm like, yeah, it's a gift for you. And they said, these are the ones on your arm. Are they for everyone else? We're like, yes, can we go up and hand them? They're like, no, don't worry. We'll take them all for you, and we'll give one to each and every occupant in this building. It goes to show that it's not in our own strength that we were doing this, but this is God's mission. Yeah.
G'day. Just a quick story. One of the days we were delivering Bibles, we did what we called a blitz on a town, where it's all the OJ team, so like all of the 400 plus people that were participating went and delivered Bible to this town. And the idea is sort of just like to get in and get out pretty quickly. Anyway, we'd finished for the day, and we were just heading out. And on our way out, we saw like a young boy was walking along, taking the Bibles off the fences and like the doors of people's houses, And when he got to the end of the street, he chucked them all in a dumpster. So we sort of, like, we were meant to be leaving, but we were like, oh, we'll stop and wait till he leaves. Waited till he left, and then we went and got all the Bibles out, and then just went and, like, put them all back on the houses. And there was this old man just up on his balcony, like up on the next story of his house, and like he called me over, and then I went over and he like threw a rope down with a hook on it, and so I hooked a Bible on it and then passed it up to him, and he's like had a read of it, and he's like, "Oh, this is Bible." Obviously he said it in Greek. I don't know what he was saying, but he was really excited. So yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
I think it really gets that Aussie fair go for all thing when they don't even give people an opportunity to read the Bible for themselves. So we weren't going to let them get away with that. We went dumpster diving. Kalispera. Good evening. When we were in Greece, we had the opportunity to go into a couple of Orthodox churches, one up in a village, and then when we were on the island of Idra, I went into another one. Very, very different from here. Have you ever been in a really traditional Orthodox church? Yeah. They're quite amazing. They're built in the shape of a cross. When you go in, they're usually very ornate with arch ceilings and a lot of money generally spent on them and their upkeep. They don't have, very often they don't have pews as such, but they do have kind of these seats with a very narrow bit you sit on all around the edges, which is apparently for the people who sing or chant the prayer bits. Right in the middle, they have a spiral staircase that goes up really high, and that's, we think it's where they read the lectern thing. And then on the ground level, there's like a throne, which is where the priest sits. At the very front, there are these paintings set in gold and silver all the way across behind glass. Incredibly valuable pieces. There's one particular saint that you'll see little icons attached to it with body parts, and people will get these made if they're ill, and they'll get the body part made, so if they've got a sore foot, they'll get a foot one, and then they'll kind of pin it to that saint. They'll be made of gold or silver, incredibly expensive. So there's one saint you'll often see kind of covered in these little tokens. What do you call those things? Any rate, it's a desire to be well. So God's kind of on a painting set in silver and gold behind glass. The church we went into, Idra, also had a case with bone bits in it, and set in gold, and one was bits of a hand and bits of a foot, and there's a whole case of them actually. And just FYI, if bones aren't in the sun, they don't go white, they kind of go this really browny, black, disgusting, festy looking colour. And there's just this sense of God being unattainable, God being behind. It's almost like looking at a book and only being able to see the cover. The priests believe that only the enlightened should read the scriptures. Every Sunday they don't actually necessarily read the Bible. They have a kind of book of prayers or liturgy that they follow, and they're not allowed to go outside of it. They'll spend at least 20 minutes on the saint that church is dedicated to, and then there'll be other bits. So it's kind of like they believe in God. Most people do in Greece, believe in God, but all they get to see is the outside of the cover. And it's really special when you take a Bible to people. You get reactions from every end of the spectrum. A lot of people hold it to their chest and pat it, you know. And it's our prayer that they'll take it home and God will get from being unreachable behind a glass thing in something that's dead and become something that's alive for these people. And with Greece, I really think the harvest is ripe. Yeah. I wanted to read you, the reason why I shared that story, it's a bit of an odd one, it's not kind of what happened, was I was reading this morning, It's from my read through the Bible, and I'm in Deuteronomy still, which kind of is a bit telling, isn't it? I heard that, Andrea. I'll get there. You saw no form of any kind the day the Lord spoke to you at Horeb out of the fire. Therefore, watch yourselves very carefully, so that you do not become corrupt and make for yourselves an idol, an image of any shape, with a form like a man or a woman, or like an animal on earth, or any bird that flies in the air, or like any creature that moves along the ground, or any fish in the waters below. And when you look up to the sky and see the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the heavenly array, do not be enticed into bowing down to them and worshipping things the Lord your God has apportioned to all the nations under heaven. But as for you, the Lord took you and brought you out of the iron smelting furnace. That's what he made. Out of Egypt, to be the people of his inheritance you now are. And it goes on to say later in that chapter, but if from there you seek the Lord your God, you will find him, if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in distress and all these things have happened to you, then in the later days you will return to the Lord your God and obey him. For the Lord your God is merciful. He's a merciful God, and he will not abandon or destroy you or forget the covenant with your ancestors, which he confirmed to them by oath. So it's my prayer that Greece will seek God, and in his mercy I know they'll find him.
The order doesn't matter too much, but Jade, why don't you? Ladies first.
All right. So, I was there a couple weeks before the rest of the team working with Hellenic Ministries, and just helping with a lot of the planning aspect of OJ. And so I spent 2 weeks helping plan the accommodation for Operation Joshua, and then the day before the camp was going to start, the police decided to. So we normally house everyone at OJ in tents, just for cost effectiveness, and it means they all get to stay on site. And there was about 400 participants coming this year, so didn't have to put 400 people in tents, but it was still a fairly high number, maybe 350, 250. It was high. And basically the police came and, we just started setting up the tents and everything, and they were all like, oh, actually, you don't have a permit to set up any tents here, so you will be sued if you set up tents for a few $1 million and that type of thing, and probably a few million euros, actually. And we were like, well, let's not do that. So with 1 day to go, I'm trying to think about the accommodation and where we could put 350 people. And but I felt very at peace about it, very much you know what, if anyone's going to get blamed, it'll be Jonathan McCrease. So I'm okay. So basically, we drove around for a day just looking at other campsites, trying to find somewhere that might be able to house all these people, and everywhere was pretty booked out. And yeah, it was seeming a little bit hard. We finally found one place, but it was quite mosquito infested, so I think for everyone's health it was better we didn't go there in the end. And the hotel owner was feeling really bad about this because basically OJ was set on a hotel property, and we had the campsite just adjoined to that. And he was feeling really bad about this, and he's like, oh, I have another hotel which was closed down. It was closed for the summer, I think, because he had been housing refugees in it. So he offered, I'll open up the other hotel, and everyone who was going to stay in tents can stay there. And so we ended up organizing these buses, and everyone came basically and was bussed back and forth to this hotel. And yeah, it was just incredible how it all worked out, and all within a day. As people were arriving and I'm telling them their accommodation, I still didn't actually know what the plan was. So I was like, I think you're staying in this hotel room. And basically I had no idea if we were ending up going to end up setting up tents on that day, or it was all just a little bit up until the last minute, we had no idea what was going on. And so I think all I wanted to say to you guys is it ended up being really good because the next day after everyone arrived, it poured with rain. And I know that because I was still sleeping in a tent. And I walk in, I'll just tell this story because it's funny. Well, I think it is. And so I walk into my tent right at 3 or 4 a.m. after getting everyone sorted. And I just see my cousin Katie, who I happen to be in a tent with. And what she had done with the rain is pulled our mattresses into the middle and all of our stuff away from the rain wasn't coming in on the sides of tents. I don't know if you know how normally it's the walls, but it was coming in different patches. And so she had positioned our suitcases all around the patches of puddles, and she hadn't brought any bedding with her. So she had a deflated air mattress pulled over the top of her, and she was curled into a ball in the middle of the room with all this rain pouring down on her deflated mattress with a tiny t-shirt covering her. And then my sleeping bag was laid out next to her, which had kept all nice for me to sleep on, but it was wet. So anyways, all I'm saying is it was really, really good that we didn't have 350 people sleeping in soggy tents, because spent the next few days just drying out all those tents and everything. So yeah, I think God just knows best, and he's just sovereign over everything. And that was something I just wanted to encourage you guys with, is he has plans beyond anything we can plan. And yeah, I think we can just always trust him with the outcome of things. And I think in a way, some people might have viewed the 2 weeks of planning I'd done as wasted time, because it ended up just being completely changed last minute. But I think in reality, God is outside of time, and he redeems time, and he just knew better than anything we could have been planning for. So I hope that is encouraging to you.
Thank you. See, the first time I see this from this vantage point, usually I look at you and now I look the other way. It's great. What an experience. Going to Greece, the reason I decided, I did not have any idea what's going to be expected or what's going to happen. But I went there because I wanted to be part of church congregation, a privilege. So we went there, and landing in Thessaloniki, I said to Liza, what hotel? She said, what do you mean, what hotel? So we did not have a name, we didn't have an address of the hotel, but we know that we had a rental car booked because we booked it together. So no stress, we just went to the rental place and came just in time when Stuart lost his A3 Audi Q, brand new, because he didn't have an international driver's license. But me with my 25-year-old or 35-year-old Austrian driver's license, I could pick up that car. And someone to guide us to the hotel. So Ross, Stuart and I, we left with 2 black SUVs and with 1 white SUV, and we looked really professional, sharp, honestly, when we came. So, but what really blew me away throughout this is that how people arrived, just the sheer number. At the end, with all the stress we had with accommodation, or you had with accommodation, we were about 400 people, more than 60 cars, and leaving in the morning was like you saw in the movie, in regards to, absolutely amazing. And I just was counting up the road toll we had to pay, or which was paid on that day, was every day about €1,000 on road toll. In total, I think we drove some 90,000 kilometers and distributed 130,000 Bibles. And with these 90,000 kilometers, we had 1 accident. Beside whiplash, the rest was paid by insurance, so not really that much of a damage, but everyone was safe. In regards to the distributing Bibles, I thought how that's going to happen. You drive in a village and then you say, okay, where am I going to start? You have a house here and then you see the next house somewhere far away. What's an economic, efficient way to distribute it? And at the end of the day, every car has distributed about 250 to 350 Bibles, depending on how extended or expanded the village was. And just what was involved in logistics, the Bibles were stored in a warehouse. So you go there and you say, wow, we have to distribute that. It's never going to end, because you only can fit about 350 Bibles in a car when you put some on the back seat as well. And at the end, it was all achieved. But the real highlight, climax of the whole thing was when towards the end I saw the control center, how this was arranged, organized, prepared, and then efficient and absolutely professionally executed. Absolutely incredible. And I think what did I get out of it? First of all, we all were given, or mankind was given a commission to go out there and spread the word, the good news, really, hope. And I think we did that very well. I was actually the first one to distribute the Bible. We arrived in the village, Loki was in the car as well, and while we stop and get out of the car, someone stops and says, "What are you doing here?" Thankfully, Loki speaks some Greek, actually quite good Greek, and we could sort it out. And he said, "We were just wondering because somebody was to come, and but not you." And I then distributed the first Bible across the fence. An elderly lady was sitting in the backyard with 2 vicious dogs, and that went very well. And not attacked, nothing. The visit to this village actually ended that there was one coffee house there, which allowed us to sit down and eat the lunch we brought with us. Not even putting any point that we have to buy something from them. And we decided to leave 2 Bibles with them. And they were so grateful. They were just having their lunch there because there were no other guests there. 2 sausages, and they wanted to actually share this with us. So this is how this one day ended. And actually, it was a privilege to be part of it. I feel great having done something for the Lord. Yeah.
Thanks, Stu. Each year we've had lots of exciting experiences. Priest trying to throw us out of the town with his minder next to him with a pit bull on his shirt, trying to intimidate us. That didn't happen this time, but there were some other good stories. But what came out of this year for me was a confirmation that the value of a fellowship, whether we're fellowshipping here in our church, in our home, in our school or workplace, the value of fellowship that comes out, the opportunities are there all the time. And I noticed there was a pattern over the last 4 years where, as a result of the fellowship, very, very close relationships developed. So if ever you wanted to have a close relationship with someone you don't even know, go on a missions trip, particularly to Greece. And God just chooses the people, and then the fellowship develops. The first year was with Blair in 2013. The second year was with Heidi. The third year with a guy I spoke about last year, Aaliyah, and an African girl who spoke Greek, who was our Greek person, Esther. But this year there was 3 very strong fellowships, and taking nothing away from the other guys that were there with us, with Lindsay and Michelle from our team. Carl and I felt a very close relationship with them. And these were guys we knew of but didn't really know much about them or their personalities or themselves before we went away. And God blessed us with a very, very close relationship. But there was a guy who was our Greek interpreter, a little Greek guy. He was still at high school. And God gave him and I a really special fellowship. And as I looked at it later, when Stewie reminded us, that Stewie's been reminding us about noticing, listening and sharing. And my story of Greece this time, apart from what I've just mentioned, is that Harris is his name, and he and I were gelling quite well. But one day he came down from this long, long hill. Well, I didn't know it was a long hill, but came back to the car and said, "Look, I couldn't give a Bible to the house up the road because there's a dog there and it was scaring me." I said, "Oh, well, a dog's a dog. It's one house." I said, "Look, well, we won't worry about it." And he said, "No, I really want to go back there." So I said, "Oh, all right." And I knew the road looked skinny. It was going to get skinnier. So off we went. We went up this road. It was going and going. I thought, I don't know how we walked this far, and it was uphill and it was a long way. The road was getting narrower, and I think, I'm not going to be able to turn around here, and I'm on the opposite side of the road. I won't be able to reverse back. I'm getting anxious for Jeff. Anyway, we got to the house, and it wasn't a very big dog, and it wasn't barking or carrying on. But he was still intimidated by it. And I said, well, look, I'll put the Bible out. And he said, no, I need to do it. And I think because he walked up, it probably was more aggressive towards him. Anyway, he got out of the car and he put the Bible out, and the dog was eyeing him off and walking around. And he got back into the car, and the relief and the joy that he had, that he had achieved putting the Bible out and confronting the dog and all of that. And he said, oh, thanks, we did it. And I said, we didn't do it. I said, I drove here, you got out, you put it on the thing. He said, no. And he's hugging me and saying, we did it. So I just encourage you, if there's somebody in your life, or today, tomorrow, next year, and you feel that they, by your noticing and listening, and you feel that I could be of a benefit to this person for them and for God's glory, make the effort. It would have been easy for me just to drive away and just not do that house. But for whatever reason, it was so important to him, and I went because I didn't want to disappoint him. But I wish he was here today. He's a lovely guy, and hopefully not hopefully, we're already communicating now. But there's so many souls out there that are just waiting for someone to come alongside them, and even in our own family here. So keep on the lookout for each other. We all have a need at a certain time. Well, yeah, I'm not sure who adopted who, but as you learn, and his dad left him when he was 12. He doesn't smile in photos, and he has a beautiful smile. For some reason, he thinks he looks gawky, but that's the last thing Carmel or I thought. So we have got a photo with a smile and one without. But yeah, even as I said, I really in trying to encourage you to don't be looking, just be watching, and but particularly in our own family, on Sunday here or at church or in your workplace. There's so many of us that have a need to be noticed and listened to, and then we'll be more than happy to share. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeff. Give him a round of applause. Thanks, guys. We got another greeting as part of this bracket from the Hensons. Ready to go, Mark?
Hello. We're in Hong Kong. We were in China last week, but we're back in Hong Kong this week, and we'll be leaving on Tuesday to arrive home Wednesday morning.
There's a bit too much to tell you about Greece, so we'd rather do that when we get home. Lots and lots of stories to share, lots of adventures. God has been amazing, and we're looking forward to getting home next week. So see you all next Sunday. Bye-bye. Bye.
It really is a privilege to serve God overseas, but when you go with a team from your own church, there's something very, very special about that. I think that was what, as we look at the team gathered there in the Titania Hotel and just actually reminiscent of other teams in other years, and just thinking what a privilege it is to serve together. But of course, it's not just the faces around that table. We were very, very aware. In fact, in one of our very first meetings, we thanked the Lord for all of those who are praying for us while we're away. And so thank you for coming along tonight. Thank you for hearing these stories, rejoicing with us, and thank you for praying with us as well, those who are able to do that. We really do appreciate that. I'd like to invite Lockie, Liza, Michelle, Carm. I think that's everyone. Would you come up and have I missed anyone from the team inadvertently? I don't think so. Oh, myself, with bits and pieces everywhere. You know, I get to speak all the time. Come and love to hear from you. You want to go first? Lockie's a veteran. How many OJs now, Lockie?
Yeah.
Yep. There's
That's
a bunch
right.
of them.
It's this was my fourth time to Greece, third time at OJ, which is actually hello. It's a microphone. It was kind of interesting because I think when you've been to a country on a mission trip that many times, it starts to lose a bit of its kind of like doing something new excitement factor. So for me, it was very much, yeah, I've been here, like, and the food is very good and the culture is really quite good and the people are really nice. So it's a great place, but doesn't have that sort of exciting new feel to it, I suppose, when you're going there for a fourth time. So I really went with a bit of a mindset of hoping to really be used by God and to have a real sense of purpose in going. That was kind of the mindset that I had. But there were a number of things that happened that were a little bit sort of unsettling, sort of things that took me a bit out of my comfort zone. Nothing particularly panic-inducing, but right from the start, for me, like we travelled through Turkey, and the day before we were set to leave, we wake up to news that the airport in Istanbul's been bombed. We're about to fly through it, so I was right from the start sort of thinking, oh, that's not nice. Would have been cool if we had just been able to fly through and it was all nice and we get to Greece. But and a number of things like that happened. My phone broke. Had a run-in with the police at one point. There was the accommodation situation that Jade was talking about before. And I... Yeah, as I said, not panic-inducing, but a little bit unsettling. And I remember sitting in my hotel room partway through and just having a chat with God about this and sort of asking a question along the lines of, what's going on here? Am I really supposed to be here? This is kind of quite uncomfortable. What am I actually doing here? Which I think possibly some of us have asked it at various points in our life. And I remember looking back and reflecting on what had been accomplished over the course of the operation, and just thinking, really the thing that we went there to do, the thing that we set out to do was accomplished. We delivered over 120,000 Bibles. And yeah, that's incredible. And just thinking, upon reflection, I think the misconception that I had was that going and serving God, perhaps I was looking for an indicator of success based on the sort of the comfortability of going. And, trusting in God means expecting smooth and comfortable circumstances for the mission trip, but learning that perhaps that's not really reality, but trusting in God means trusting that He's going to accomplish the things that He set out to accomplish. And going outside of the comfort zone is something that perhaps we should come to expect, I guess, which is a really important lesson for me, I think, as I look to potentially doing this kind of a thing long term. Being ready to step out of the comfort zone, I think, was an important lesson. Yeah, they had the coup. So they had the bomb on the way there, and then they had the coup on the way back. But I think by that point, I sort of went, oh, it's kind of expected.
Who recommended Turkish Airlines to you?
Yeah, they had a really good deal. They must have. Yeah, so saved a lot of money. Yeah, it was great. It was real good.
Well, we can always say that missions trips are very exciting. Good things happen. Over the years that we've been going, there's many blessings. There's always blessings, even from the moment that, as a team, we arrive in Athens and we group together at the Titania. And over those days of orientation, gelling together and spending time together and getting to know each other, then arriving at camp and the blessings that come as a group, over 400 of us this time, and individually, working together as a team, getting to know friends that we've known now for 4 years. And as we go out on the road, the blessings that come as a result of that too. So God is continuously blessing us all along the way. just the privilege of being able to be there and to be God's feet and hands and mouthpiece is an absolute blessing. And Jeff and I and our team spent the majority of our time in the little villages. We did do a few of the larger towns, but the majority of our time were in the tiny little villages. And this one particular day, we were travelling up to probably about 20 minutes away from the Albanian border. So we travelled for probably an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to the villages that we were going to distribute the Bibles to. Anyhow, on our brochure distribution booklet that we had that morning, this town had, I think it was about 7 or 8 Bibles to be distributed, so we knew it was a tiny town. But as we drove up the mountain and we saw the farmhouses that were there but were now rubble, a lot of them were rubble, and no one to be seen inside. The places were empty. Anyhow, we continued on through the village and around these tiny little roads and still couldn't find anybody. There were just a lot of houses that had been left and were now overgrown, and a lot of them had fallen apart, so there were just ruins there. And as we're driving along, I'm thinking, oh, golly, well, this was a waste of time, wasn't it? Because I'm thinking of the precious time that we could be dropping Bibles. But obviously God knew better. So we got a call from our buddy car that said they were at the bottom of the mountain and their car had broken down. Could we come and help them? So we decided to try and find a road to turn the car around and head back down the mountain to help them. And as we did, we found this very, very narrow little road that we thought we could get in, get around and turn the car around. And as we went down that area, which was very isolated, here's this little old man standing at his front of his house, which was almost tumbled down too, holding onto his front fence post, standing there bent over, and we spotted him as we started to turn the car. Anyhow, Steve that was with us said, I'll jump out, I'll take a Bible, I'll go and talk to him. Anyhow, we turned the car around and we waited for a little while for Steve to come back, and we could see this conversation going on with this little old man at the fence. And Steve jumped in the car and he said he and his wife had not seen anyone for weeks, let alone speak to anybody. And it hit me as we drove down that mountain to help our buddy car. I thought, you know, how many times do we say, God knows every hair on our head. He knows us intimately. He knows every detail about us. He wants a personal relationship with each and every one of us. And we say that, but do we believe it? And I thought, God bless that man that day and his wife. We went there for him. There were no others there, and we distributed no other Bibles in that little town. But that man and his wife were so important to God. And I came down that mountainside absolutely elated and thinking, I am blessed out of my socks to have been a part of that. And that's the blessings that we have. It was a privilege.
Well, the story that I want to share is actually not from OJ itself, but from the time that we spent in Athens. So on one of the nights we were there, we went to a local place and did participate in what was called the Love Meals, which is another one of Hellenic Ministries. And they run that about twice a week, providing meals for the refugees in Athens. And as we were standing there listening to the things that they do through the Love Meals, I just remember being so struck by the love and passion that's behind Hellenic Ministries, and down to the last detail of the fact that they would even go out of their way to find somebody from the refugees' own culture to cook food for them so that it would be like a taste of home. And I guess I was really convicted at that point of times in the past where I've gone on mission trips and just been so focused on myself and so focused on how many people can I convert or share the gospel with or pray for, and just being struck again by how much it is out of love that Jesus would talk to people, that Jesus even died for us. And so in that moment I prayed that God would give me a love for the Greek people. And as I was sitting listening to one of the staff of Hellenic Ministries give a short talk to the refugees, God just really highlighted this one lady to me who was sitting down by one of the tables. And so throughout the meal, as we were going around serving, I had the incredible opportunity to sit down with this lady and to listen to her heartbreaking story of her journey across from Afghanistan and how her son had been left behind and she had no idea where he was or what had happened to him. And we were able to cry together and just share that moment. And afterwards, I was given the incredible opportunity to pray for this lady. And I guess for me in that moment, it was just a real reminder that I don't go on mission because the pastor tells me it's a good thing or because we have this impression that evangelical Christians are somehow the best Christians, or we just, if we can pray for someone, it's such an achievement. But just a reminder that the heart behind mission is just an incredible love for these people and a love for Jesus that enables us to want to share with them the hope and the healing and the salvation that we know in Jesus Christ. And so I guess as I come back to Australia and try to live a missional life here, I'm reminded by God day by day that being on mission is not about me, but it's about Jesus, and for Jesus' sake, and for the person who's standing right in front of me, for their sake, because they have a broken relationship with God that God really wants to restore and to bring his life and his freedom and healing into. And so I guess that was a massive thing that I took away from OJ, and I'm so glad I had that experience and that moment for God to teach me that and to place that on my heart.
I realized in Greece again the truth of God's words, and especially his words that in Isaiah, that his ways are higher than our ways and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and also Romans 8:28, that all things work together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purposes. We were on day 3 of our Bible distribution, and as you have gathered, Max was a driver and I was the co-pilot, so I was really the important one because I had Google Maps. We distributed Bibles throughout the day, and it was hot, and you get in and out of the car, and outside it's hot, in the car it's cold, and so forth. And I realized that Max got increasingly unwell on that day, and a scratchy voice, and he started coughing and so forth. So I was a bit worried about him, and true enough, at the end of the day he was feeling totally under the weather and unwell, and I started to worry what would happen on the next day, because if our car was stationary, what would happen with the team and all these things. So I prayed fervently, and I prayed for Max that he would recover. And in the morning when I woke up really early, I didn't even sleep well. I woke up early and I looked at him, and he was truly miserable. There was just no chance that he would get out of bed. So I was really, really worried, because I thought, man, how am I going to let everyone know, and what is happening with the people? Do they have to stay back at camp, because we are not going out? And I prayed again and said, Lord, I can only give all that into your hands, and you need to help me to sort that out. And then I tried to text dispatch at the other hotel, and I didn't get an answer back, because it was obviously too early for them to be in the office. So I had breakfast quickly downstairs, and again I had this knot in my stomach, and I thought I have to sort that out as quick as possible. So I walked out. I decided to walk over to the other hotel, which was a pathway along the beach, beautiful, beautiful walk in the morning. And And I prayed, I was walking and talking to God. And when I saw someone coming out of the water, and I thought, an angel? No! I looked closer, it was Jonathan McCreath, even better. And I sped up to kind of reach him as he was walking out of the water and quickly back to the hotel. He had an early morning swim, obviously. And yeah, I was speeding up, but then I saw that people were coming towards him from the other side of the path, and he stopped and started talking to them. And I had purposed in my heart that if I can't go out, I will definitely join the intercessors team, because that seemed very appealing to me for that day. Anyway, I reached Jonathan and those two people, and I said, Jonathan, you're exactly the man I need. What can I do? Where do I go from here with my news that Max is in bed? And he graciously took out a pad and a pencil in a little bag that he was carrying, and he said, just give me the names of your team in the car, and I will be going out today myself, so there will be enough room in the cars to get everyone onto the road. And I thought, oh, thank you, Lord. And then he introduced me to those two people who he had stopped and talked with. And it turned out that they were part of the intercessors team. So I said, great, where do I need to go and what do I need to do to join you guys? And they told me exactly where I had to go. And everything was sorted out. It was basically, with this one encounter, all my worries just disintegrated. And I praise the Lord for that. And then when I joined them, I realized that incredible work they did in the background. You know, they had the chairs out next to the dispatch, which was where the Bibles were being distributed and where the cars left. And we started praying even before the cars left and as the cars left, for each driver by name and for each member in that car. And we were just praying for safety and this and that. And as we were going along, I just realized all of a sudden that I had found the place where I belonged. It felt like, man, God, you have put me where I really belong. It was such an overwhelming feeling of joy, and I enjoyed that day so much. And of course, I stayed with them the day after and only left to get Max's antibiotics and then came back. So yeah, it was a real joy. And what I'm bringing home is a new fervency for intercession, because I prayed with those older ladies. I felt like a spring chicken among them, but their spiritual authority was just incredible. And one was Jonathan McCreath's mum, and the other one Jonathan's wife Miriam's mum, and the third one was the mother of one of the ex-captains from the Doulos. Yeah. And then there was a pastor from Athens and his wife, and I was just enjoying myself and learning from them a new level of intercession. So that is something that I have brought home. And I thought, this old lady, with her walking stick, outside we are becoming older and frailer, but inside we can really become like lions and like generals. And I had the feeling when she was stomping with her walking stick as she was praying, I was thinking the forces of darkness were shuddering.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Laura. Thanks, guys. Good to have a seat. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, they're dears. Those ladies in that intercession team, are just so wonderful. Well, we had. I'll just share one quick story with you. Very very much appreciate your prayer. It was sometimes in funny times, and maybe in heaven we'll be able to just work out the whole timing of it. But Bron is not blessed entirely with a accurate GPS system. So, for instance, she and Heather are in Athens airport, and before the flight decided that they would just go check out the comfort rooms and see if they were comfortable, and so they walked in there, and then as they're chatting and walking out together, they open a door and enter into the closet. So just were having trouble finding their way out and back. So I guess it's not that surprising that in a large city that sometimes there were going to be losses. And on this one occasion, I had Bron was in the car, and on this one occasion, she had, along with Diana, a dear wife of a pastor over in the States who was possibly on his knees at that time, they had found themselves walking the wrong way down a street. I think it was kind of a strange streets and so forth, but they were supposed to take a left and meet me around the corner, but they took a left and a right, and I did several laps around one-way streets. I just could not find them, and eventually Bron broke our little rule to not use her phone with the Australian SIM card in it. She decided, if there's an emergency, this is an emergency, and she said, I'm near that cafe we passed earlier this morning. And she described it had a tree. And I take notice of cafes. And so I kind of thought, okay, I know where you are. And I looked at the map, and just my estimation, she sort of didn't have a street or anything like that, but my estimation was she was way over several blocks away in another whole area. And so trusty Google with its one-way streets said it will take 20 minutes to reach my destination by doing an entire circumference of the city or something. But we found our way down some one-way streets and so forth, and finally was able to see the cafe. I knew I was coming up the right street, saw the cafe over there with the tree, and was able to find Bron and Diane. But it could have been a very, very different result. And it was just in little things like that we realized and appreciated the prayer, the constant intercession that was going up. And I guess in those subtle little times, and maybe in the past few weeks you've found yourself in a situation, and this is where I'll finish by just tying it back to what we've been focusing on a little bit here at EBC. And do you remember, we're doing our Abide series. We talked about E being an envoy of grace. We looked at what grace actually means, and then this whole idea of being an ambassador, ministers of reconciliation, and what does it mean to be an envoy of grace? And we explored that, and we had three words. Looking at John 4 and Jesus ministering to the Samaritan woman, we looked at the importance of noticing people. We looked at the importance of listening to them. And Jeff said this before, and then we looked at listening to the Lord for opportunities to share. And really, whether you happen to be in Greece or some rural little village, or whether you happen to be tomorrow, where does tomorrow morning place you? Well, wherever that is, it's the same. Notice, listen, share. Notice, listen, share. Trust God to lead you. One particular city, we had endeavoured to go up a little street, and an irate lady was in a very, very wealthy house, was just yelling at us irrationally. And well, actually the ladies at that time. So I thought, all right, I'll tackle this one. So I got out of the car and probably believing too much in my skill at negotiation and being able to de-escalate a situation, I spoke in lovely moderate tones and attempted to reason with this lady, but for reasons that I still to this day don't know whether to put down to something demonic, some sort of a religious spirit or mental illness, I do not know, to be quite honest, but it was irrational behaviour. And in the end, the words actually came to mind, shake the dust off your feet, Stuart. Well, I thought, well, I won't physically do that, but yeah, I think it's time to just let it go. And I just had a nudge, notice, listen, share. I just had a nudge to disregard her ranting and raving, not be put off by that, and walk over to the neighbour who was a bit embarrassed, I think, to be quite honest, about the whole situation. And I walked over, and do you ever have those situations where you just don't have the right words? Well, this was one of them. I walked over and I had a bag and I said, would you like one? Now, I quite thought that she would reject it so that she could keep relationship with the ranting, raving neighbour. But she looked at me and she looked at the bag and she said, I'm Muslim. And I looked at her and I thought, that was not the response that I was expecting here in Greece. But she was probably Eastern European, so I quickly did the math and thought, oh yeah, okay. And there was nothing. Blank, just, okay, have a lovely day. And wrapped up my little Bible, and I thought, well, that street's just a write-off, isn't it? And we hopped in the car, drove away. God had my attention, but again, I just felt like I missed my moment. You know, there was something I should have done, something I should have said, but what? Anyway, we drove around, and this was a funny little town where often we couldn't get the car up certain streets. That's another story, ask me about it. But I had to pull up on the main road with another good friend, Jonathan Zachariah, who's a pastor in California. And I pulled up there, and the teams had taken Bibles from us, and they'd headed inland. Anyways, I told Jonathan about this situation, and he said, yeah, funny town. It's like they love you or hate you. And he said... And I said, oh, yeah, well, there was this other lady. He was a surprise. And she said, I'm Muslim. He said, really? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I've got a Bible in I can't remember, it was Arabic, Persian, can't remember, but he said, it's especially for Muslims. It looks exactly like the Quran. I said, really? He said, yeah, I just happen to have 5 of them. And he grabbed one out and he said, hey, we're just waiting for the others to come back. Do you want to run it back? And I thought about the ranting, raving lady in the street. And I thought, no, I don't want to go back, particularly by myself. But you know what? And of course, notice, listen. Sometimes we're not listening to the person, but we're listening to the Lord. Sometimes listening to the Lord through a person. Sometimes just listening to the Lord. I thought, I think I should do this. So I said, all right, well, thank you. And I looked at this, and sure enough, you open it the wrong, what we would refer to the wrong way, and it's actually even got in terms of the same sort of meter as the Quran. It reads in terms of the way that it's written. The translation will read a little bit like the Quran reads, and so Jonathan has shown me this is really, really good. So I grabbed it and I drove all the way back, and it took. Again, one-way streets. It took a while to find this street again, and then I prayed, Lord, I would really love to be able to drop this Bible at this house, but I'm going to need you to sort of intervene here. So that other lady is there. She's going to take the Bible. It's going to be, and here I am by myself too. And so I drove up the street very quietly and left the car running and looked around and nothing. Oh, this is a good start. I hopped out, went around the back. I slipped the Greek Bible out, and then I put this other one in, wrapped it up, had a little look around. No one. Went up to the house to see if the lady was there. No one. And I thought, this is perfect. So I just popped it sort of out of sight, just down on the step there, and was able to hop back in the car and drive off again. Now, I won't know the other part of that story for some years. That is when we get to heaven and I get to ask God about that and say, I was trying to notice, I was trying to listen, I was trying to share. And Lord, how did it go? And sometimes we don't know the whole story. But let me reassure you, little moments like that where sometimes you might write off a situation, think, well, I really don't know what good that was. I really don't know if the Lord was able to use those efforts. I really don't know if that remark was helpful. But God uses, I believe, all of those little contributions as part of his plan to reach those who are lost. For it is his desire that none should be lost, that none should perish. That's the heart of God. And as we cooperate in his mission to the world, he will use all of those little efforts. You just need to pause and believe that he wants to use you, will use you. Pray to that end. Notice people. Listen to them where you have an opportunity. Listen to God. And where you can, share the hope that you have within you. Well, I trust that you've been encouraged even as we've come back encouraged. We've been able to see a little bit of what God is doing all around the world. That was just a short-term mission. Really, it will take long-term missionaries to go back into many of these places to be able to effectively learn language, understand the contextual issues, and to be able to share the gospel. And many, many more of us are better aware and now of what that means and why it is that we support all of those folk there and those posters out there, and hopefully how to pray for them too as they serve overseas. Let me pray. Band will come up and we'll finish with a song. Heavenly Father, we do want to thank you again for the opportunity that we've just had at Eltham Baptist Church to send some from our team here a little bit further afield than normal. We thank you for the stories we've shared tonight, and we've been just so privileged, Lord, to join you in your mission to the world. And it wasn't just there in Greece, and it wasn't just a month ago, but it's tomorrow and the next day and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. It's tomorrow morning, wherever it is that you have us, that once again we are a sent people. And that we believe you long to use us to reach a hurting world. Would you help us to connect with the people who are most hurting and most ready, most ripe to hear the gospel? And it might surprise us, Lord. It might be people who normally are cynical and flippant and who would never stop and have a deep conversation, but circumstances in their life for some reason or another have just radically changed. And guess what? They're open. We want to be there in those moments, Father, ready to be used by you. Tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, as we all go out from here as your missionaries, your ambassadors, your envoys of grace, would you please use us to that end? Would you help us to notice the little people, the people that nobody else is noticing? Oh, Lord, would you give us listening ears and somehow make space and time for that to happen? And would you grant us the grace to know how to sensitively share the good news, the hope that we have within? Use us, we pray, for the sake of your glory and your name. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.